Hello everyone, this is Miss Robinson here with your next instalment of English, which I know you've all been looking forward to. So today I'm going to treat this like I would do any lesson. So at any point there's any activities or tasks, all you need to do is stop the video, complete what I'm asking you to do, and then hopefully you'll have a better understanding of the topic we're dealing with. So first things first, we are looking today at linking paragraphs. So if you'd like to take a minute, you can pause the video and you can do the learn objective, the title, and make a note of the keywords. If you have some time, maybe go and find out what these keywords are, but I'll be going through them shortly. Also, whilst you're here, why don't you do a little quick recap on what you learned last lesson? So what does tip top stand for? When do we change these paragraphs? So pause the video now, make the notes of the things you need to make, and then we'll carry on. Okay, so we today, hopefully you should be able to understand the importance of making sure your paragraphs link in the writing, because it is really important, especially if you want to keep pushing up your grades. We are going to be looking at how we can identify connectives and discourse markers, and I'll talk about those in a minute, and the reasons for using them, and also going to hopefully be able to use them in your own writing. So from the recap for your do now, hopefully you will remember that the reasons we change paragraphs are: we change paragraphs when there's a different time, that's the TI. We change paragraphs when there is a different person speaking or being talked about, so you see that quite often in novels. So that's your P. We quite often change, well, we should always, change our paragraphs when there is a change in topic, so TO. And then finally, we also change our paragraphs when it's a different place. So hopefully give them a tick if you got them all right. Those are the times we have to change paragraphs. So paragraphs aren't about changing when it's a certain length, we should change it. So some paragraphs can be 1-2 word sentences even, but they can, so they can be really short, but they've got to be changed if you are changing it because of one of those reasons. So you should, I hope, have your workbook with you, which is the white Key Stage 3 English CPG workbook today. And the page we're going to be doing is page 71. So when you've done all the tasks that I set you, you should be able to do this page really quite easily, hopefully. Okay, so if you haven't got your workbook, pause the video, go and fetch it, and you'll need your pens and paper, which I hope you'd have anyway. Okay, let's move on. If my PowerPoint will change. So I want you now to have a think about when do we change paragraphs. So why is it important to make sure our paragraphs link? What is important about it? So I will hope now that you will take this opportunity to pause the video again and think about the reasons why. Why is it so important to make sure that our paragraphs link? So make a note, you can do it in a spider diagram or a mind map like what I've done here, or you can just do a bullet point list, I don't mind. Okay, so some of the reasons we should have for linking paragraphs, really important because it makes sure your writing flows. If you have your workbook open, you'll actually see it right at the top of the page. We want to be able to have a real nice flow to our writing so that it doesn't just seem really jarring or stop-starty all over the place. You link our paragraphs, especially if we want to show that writing is in a particular order. So that's important, especially if we're changing time, or we're moving along, or we're building an argument. We need to have a nice order to it. If we want to write something in chronological order, for example, we want to show that the time is moving on. We want to be able to link our paragraphs because it is helping us understand. The reader needs to understand why you've changed the paragraph. They don't want to be like, what's going on now? So they need to know that. So that's really important. And finally, I always like to think of things, your writing as a jigsaw. If you took parts of your writing away, your linking paragraphs should all be able to be put back together, because if you've linked them properly, you should be able to work it out like a puzzle. So you should be able to see where your paragraphs link, which ones go in what order, and we could all be fit back together if you put it all apart. Okay. So, keywords for today were connectives, conjunctions, discourse markers, and topic sentences. So, hopefully you've heard of some of them. I'm just going to clarify a few of them because it's really important. There is one particular one we're not going to use really today, but I still think you need to know the difference. Okay, so connectives are they're words or phrases. So they don't just have to be a single word, they can be multiple words, but they come together and they always at the start of a sentence. They start the sentence and they usually start a sentence or a paragraph, and it helps connect it to the previous one. So it's a word or a phrase that connects the sentence to the sentence or the paragraph before. So for example, some great connectives are therefore, where you have said something and then you've talking about the result of it. Or another one is on the other hand. So as you can see, on the other hand is more than one word. So you can use quite a lot of connectives and it shows there's something different now. On the other hand. So I went to the shops. On the other hand, my sister went to the cinema. We could have, I went to the shops, therefore I bought some milk. So you can use them depending on what you want to say. Okay, this is one we're not going to use as much today, but I still really think you need to know it. Okay, so a conjunction is different, and I think the reason I want to use this today is because it's quite often people call them connectives, and they're not connectives. They're conjunctions, and they're the small words that go in the middle of sentences. They're the ones that join two clauses together to create a compound sentence. So a really good way of remembering which ones the conjunctions are, we can often remember them by using that acronym FANBOYS. So the conjunctions we usually come are for, and, nor, because, or but, they're both conjunctions, or, yet, and so. So I went to the shops and I bought some milk. That's what they are. So they're the ones in the middle. So don't mix them up with the connectives. We're not talking about conjunctions today. We're talking about connectives. Okay, discourse markers. The reason I wanted to put this in, guys, is because it's on the GCSE mark scheme. So you need to know it. And all it is just a fancy term we use. And it basically is the word, or sorry, two words that we use that we would call connectives or topic sentences. It's basically anything we use that show the writer, the reader, the examiner, whoever we're writing for, this is why our paragraph has changed. So discourse markers are really important, and hopefully you'll come across them quite a lot as the further you go up the school, but it's just a word to describe basically the topic we're doing today. And finally, a topic sentence is just a sentence that comes in the paragraph that you pretty much are summarising what that paragraph is about. It's usually found at the start of the paragraph, but it doesn't always have to be. And it's just a really quick, easy way for you to identify, oh, right, this paragraph is about this. So, as I've just been saying quite frequently, you don't need to worry about conjunctions today. We've needed to know the difference because like I said, a lot of people call them connectives and they're not connectives. Okay, when you do work on sentence types, you'll probably come across conjunctions much more then, but just be aware that's not what we are dealing with today. Okay, just wanted to make sure you knew that. Okay, so last lesson with Miss Holtzman, you were looking at paragraphs, and this was an example from the book. It was on page 69, I think. So if you have satellite, the problem is even worse. So this is talking about TV at home. If you have satellite, the problem is even worse. How does anyone have time to read the teleguide for all those channels, never mind actually watch all the programs? An alternative to arguing about programs is to turn off the TV. Sorry, that's technical spelling error there, sorry. Instead, you could play a game such as chess or charades. At the same time, you could talk about your day at school. Then you could go and finish your homework, start your maths assignment, or read a book. So I would like you to pause the video now. Can you spot where are there connectives? Where are there topic sentences? And if you're feeling fancy, can you spot any conjunctions? Okay, pause the video, have a go. Okay, so if you were doing that correctly, the connectives were, if you have satellite, that was just a way of talking about the last paragraph, carrying it on. An alternative, that's another connective because it pushes us on into something different. Instead is also a connective because it's giving you different things you could do. And then you have at the same time, which is another connective because it's talking about an extra information that you could do, other alternatives. And then if you were thinking about how could we summarize those paragraphs in one sentence, then the topic sentences were the first sentence, which was basically if you have satellite, the problem is even worse. So it's talking about that paragraph is about the problems with having Sky or satellite, having basically too many programs. And then second paragraph is again the first sentence where the topic sentence is about turning off the TV and doing different alternatives. Okay, so what else could you do instead of watching TV? If you were looking for the conjunctions, they were coming towards the end with and, finish your homework, and or read a book. So that's all they were. So hopefully you've got that right. If you have, give yourself a tick, give yourself a pat on the back, well done. So hopefully now you can pause the video and be able to answer the first question on page 71. So stop the video, have a go at question 1. Okay, now we're going to talk about picking the right connectives. It's really important because there are so many of them. I mean, there are loads. So we need to make sure we are picking the right ones and not just any old one. They have to be able to link. So a few things you need to know. If you've planned your work already, which we say you should always plan your work, it will be better for you because then you'll know which connectives you can use, which topic sentences. So if you're planning your work, that always helps pick. You need to make appropriate choices to show how the reader, how the writer is moving along. So you can't just pick any connective. It has to link, it has to show, has this changed? Is this something extra? Has the time moved forward? That's what you've got to consider. So for example, if you were writing a story, they're really essential because they need to show you. And if you pick up any novel now, if you picked up a book nearest to you, you will see so many connectors being used to show that the time has changed, or the character is different, or there is a different place being discussed. So they have to be in there. So if you want to pause the video again, you can challenge yourself, have a think. This is a really interesting one. A lot of students love adding a flashback to their story. They want a flashback to show some sort of memory, but what connectives could you use? Because that's really important. You can't just all of a sudden change to the past. You have to be able to show it. So pause, have a go. So if you did manage to get something, flashbacks quite often come with some sort of sense related to them. So the smell could send your character back to a time when you remembered, or all of a sudden I was back as a child in my bedroom. The smell of the sea took me back to when I was a young kid on the beach. There's quite a few different ways you can do it. So have a look, and if you feel like something you can practice, that would be really good, because flashbacks are a fantastic way of boosting your stories and getting them higher grades. Okay, connectives are also important for writing arguments. So if you have a piece of writing where you have to argue something or persuade something, that sometimes it's really important to basically to add those connectives to provide ideas or provide examples. So another thing you can do is you need to be able to challenge yourself now by pausing the video and making sure, can you add any connectives? Can you think of any connectives where you are showing some sort of counter argument in a piece of writing. Okay, off you go. So the counter argument could come something like, some people may argue that phones are a waste of time. However, I completely disagree. So you can argue with, on the other hand, those, however, all sorts of things that show that you are, the argument is one thing, but you argue something else. Okay, so have a think about that. And again, just thinking about how you can push up your grades, because counter arguments, flashbacks, are both very high standard of writing. Okay, so picking the right connective is super important. So I've given you a list of 5 different reasons or different types of connectives you could use. So well, you do definitely need to pause the video now. You can come up with a little table for yourself. You want column 1 is giving an example. So which connectives would you choose that give examples, provide examples for what you're talking about? Which connectives would you choose that give a different idea, something completely opposite or something completely different to what you've been talking about? Which connectives could you use that give a similar idea or add more information? So you were saying something and now you want to say something else or add something to it. Which connectors would you use that show the results or the summing up of something? So what were you saying, and then what does that mean? How does that make a result? And finally, which connectors we use for ordering or listing or time, changing time? So take time with this, no rush, stop, have a think, and try and put them in the right columns. So which words will go in which column? Okay, so the ones you should have had. Examples. This reinforces the ideas that this is illustrated by. An example of this is, for instance, and for example. So they're all ones that shows an example there. This is another example of something you've already been talking about. Great connectors for alternative ideas are, on the other hand, alternatively, conversely, on the contrary, all mean this is different. I was saying one thing, I really enjoy ice cream. On the other hand, I absolutely hate peanut butter, something like that. You're giving similar ideas, so you want to choose those ones that are similarly, moreover, likewise, additionally, furthermore, all of those ones that show this is something similar, it's very the same. So I hope you're ticking these off as you go. Ones that show our results or sum up everything that we've been talking about would be things like overall, in conclusion, therefore, finally, on the whole, anything that show this is it, everything you've been talking about, these are the results of what you've been discussing. And finally, ones that come under time order or listening, ordering or listing, firstly, subsequently, finally, as you can see that was in the column before as well, later and consequently, showing these things are changed or different or moved on later on. So hopefully now you should be able to use the most appropriate connectives that we've just been discussing to complete question 2 in the workbook. So question 2 in the workbook, have a look. It's giving you a paragraph. So there is an example there. Cary Grant was a famous actor at his peak in the 1940s and 50s. Originally, he was from Bristol and his real name was Archibald Leach. So the next paragraph is about Ingrid Bergman, a movie star in the 1940s. So I would be picking, if that was me, I'd be picking a connective that shows is a similar idea. It's another idea because it's still talking about 40s and 50s actors. So the example given in the workbook, another movie star from 1940s and 50s was the actress Ingrid Bergman. So they've used the connectives another. I would maybe put additionally another another movie star or a female movie star, something like that. So there's the thing. So there's an example there to follow. You should do A, B, and C on your own. Off you go. Okay, so The next 2 slides, I'm just going to, your class teacher should be sharing these with you on class charts, are just a list of ridiculous number of connectives. There are so many, and as you can see on my table that I got you to do a minute ago, they were only a few, but here we have lots and lots more for you to go at. So I want you now to use as many, use what we've got, all the support you have, all the different connectives, and try and use the most appropriate ones for you to answer question 3 and 4. So question 3 and 4 is about you writing your own paragraphs using topic sentences and connectives, and making sure your paragraphs link smoothly. So that's for you to mark, you to have a look at, and you can use this slide and you can use this slide as well. There's plenty for you to use, so hopefully you should be able to find something appropriate. Off you go. Okay, before you finish for today, then you need to make sure you mark your own work, so you can go to back of the book for page 110. You can see the answers. If you really are struggling with this topic, speak to your English teacher and they might be able to give you some more help. It's not required to be handed in today, this work, but it is definitely going to be extremely useful for moving on. There is still a lot of students who are older who are still not sure how to do paragraphs properly, so make sure you get it down now, and then you don't have to worry about it later on. This is also going to be something you will get marked on for your writing task, so make sure you are paying attention to all the lessons that we are using at the moment. Okay, I'm going to leave that with you now. Hopefully you'll be able to feel confident in your paragraph linking, and be able to practice this yourself at home. If you would like to push yourself, I've left this word search on the slide where you can find the words that are below. You could also use different colours because some are conjunctions and some are connectives, so I'm trying to make it a little bit different. And if you really want to test yourself and challenge yourself, could you make your own word search? So try something different. You can make your own word search online, just put in word search generator, and there's loads of free ones, or you can make your own by hand. I'm sure your teachers would love to see what you can do. Okay, hopefully you've finished this lesson now and you will be able to move on to the second lesson for today, which is also with me. So I will hopefully see you there. See you later.